Hi, I'm Grace.
And I'm Madeline, and this is our facilitated discussion on the development of gender identity, gender roles, and gender relations in gifted students, written by Barbara A. Kerr and Karen D. Moulton. To begin, we'd like to get you familiar with some definitions that were defined by these authors that we'll be using throughout this presentation. To begin, we have giftedness. This is one's potential for exceptional achievement or eminence in a specific domain. We also have gender identity, which is the subjective sense of one's maleness or femaleness. On the other hand, we have sexual orientation, and this is the direction of one's sexual attraction. There's also gender role, which are what expectations the society puts on what the proper behaviors for males and females are. Going along with that, we also have gender relations, which is the attitudes and behaviors of males and females in relationship with one another, as well as the ways in which gender roles shape social relations. And lastly, we have this distance from privilege. And what that is this is the distance that an individual must travel to reach the center of power in any domain in terms of overcoming barriers such as gender, class, age, and citizenship. So we'd like to also show you the stages of gender identity. And we discuss here 3 different stages. To begin, we have toddlers, and this involves children that are ages 1 through 4. When they're at this stage of gender identity, they really are fluid with their identity, so being a girl or boy doesn't matter much to children this age. Working on from here, we have early childhood, and these are students that are ages 4 through 7. This is when boys and girls will more strictly enforce the gender rules, and so they think that the clothes that they wear and the toys that they play with is what makes them a girl as opposed to a boy. And then lastly, we have later childhood. This is ages 8 through 10, and this is when children really begin to develop that understanding that their biological sex is stable in their lives. So for girls, gifted girls in particular, these girls are typically very early readers. And so normally when you think about precocious readers, you think about them being able to decode or maybe memorize the books that they're reading. But here we have it to where these girls are actually able to understand and comprehend what they're reading, and so they really need to be given that greater challenge. One way to combat this problem that people recommend is an early admission to kindergarten, and this is definitely one of the best methods of acceleration for gifted girls. However, it's sometimes denied or rejected because there are some concerns for the child's social and emotional maturity. Fortunately, what research shows is that gifted girls typically will adjust quickly to kindergarten, so it is not that big of a concern for us. We also see in gifted girls that they have interests that are more aligned with gifted boys than that of average girls, but they will typically have the potential of being rejected by these boy groups. So because of this, sometimes gifted girls will turn to older friends because they are more desirable to them, because when they only have access to these average girls, they can even be rejected by them too, despite the good social skills that they have. So what they really need to do is find friends who are advanced intellectually at their level, as well as the same social development, and those will be the most successful friendships that they will make. Unfortunately, along with gifted girls, they do also typically may believe that they are less able in science, technology, engineering, math, all these STEM courses, because of what society tells them and how this popular perception is biased towards girls. This can lead to an underachievement in math and science tests if they do believe these beliefs that society tells them. Also, parents who back up these beliefs may have a negative effect on their girls' math achievement scores because they don't believe that they can reach these higher levels of success. This creates a gap between the potential for achievement in childhood and the actual achievement that they'll reach in adulthood because there is no intervention of these beliefs. They also might have higher levels of depression, anxiety, and eating disorders. The high intelligence that they have really allows them to use their knowledge to actually sometimes hurt themselves. For example, they might use what they know in their mathematics skills to be able to learn more about nutrition and use that to restrict the calories that they have, which can lead to these eating disorders. Unfortunately, another skill that these gifted girls have is that they can hide the things that they're going through. So they might be able to mask the depression and anxiety more easily to where no one is able to identify it and really intervene early on. We also have that they are at risk for compromising their dreams and goals for the sake of romance and intimacy. We see that earlier gifted girls might begin these, the earlier that gifted girls will begin these relationships, the less that they will achieve. And this can really negatively affect them early because they start to value these things higher than their schoolwork. We see this even more in high school and college because even the people that they surround them with, their friends and their peers, they start to value their relationships more than the accomplishments that they're making in school. Lastly, we see that gifted girls are less likely than gifted boys to take advantage of highly challenging academic opportunities. And this is because we see that they're really just less likely to take risks in general. And this may account for the failure that we see for them to take these more rigorous pathways because they don't want to take these risks.
Now we're looking at gifted boys. It is assumed that privileged gifted boys will find their way to elite colleges and high-status careers. However, a nationwide study of gifted underachievers, boys who were in the 95th percentile on ACT scores but failing in school, found that the largest group was made up of white, high socioeconomic status boys from large suburban high schools. Gifted boys who do not achieve their potential are blocked by gendered practices in education and society. For example, kindergarten redshirting. This is when a child is held back an extra year before starting kindergarten. Parents believe that they are giving their child the gift of time for physical and social development. For gifted boys, this puts them behind 2 years where they could be, which can lead to these boys being out of step with their peers or bored throughout school. Also, gifted boys may underachieve as a way to establish their masculinity within a peer group. Gifted boys also are at risk for misdiagnosis of ADHD, bipolar disorder, and conduct disorder because they might act out due to their boredom. A special problem for gifted boys within these gifted programs are that they do not match all of their needs, specifically in relation to their spatial abilities. These programs tend to emphasize verbal and mathematical curricula, and so these boys might be underachieving due to the lack of the program tapping into their spatial abilities. Also, in high school, gifted boys tend to avoid girl-led or girl-dominant activities due to such as show choir, yearbook, or student theater in order to maintain their masculinity. Boys have a greater tendency towards risk-taking, and that can result in activities such as substance abuse, so that is something that counselors and teachers need to be aware of. Gifted boys also need guidance and encouragement in planning their future. Gifted boys who do not discuss college and career plans with their parents and their peers in positive ways tend to procrastinate on planning out these really important aspects of their life. They can miss important exams or qualifying for important scholarship opportunities. So it's also important to assess these boys' attitudes towards their future gender relations to help them project a more holistic way. So they're taking into account that they're going to be both an earner and a partner. Now we're going to look at the giftedness of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender students. It is estimated that there are 260,000 gifted LGBT students in the United States. However, this estimate is very conservative because it is limited to those youth enrolled in elementary through high schools who are open about their sexual minority status. For gifted LGBT youth, being twice different can lead to depression and isolation. They are confused and frightened by the fear of parental rejection, bullying, and the desire to be similar to others in their peer group. One advantage to society today is the ability to read at a high level and use books and online resources in order to learn more about what it means to be LGBT. Gay-straight alliances fit students with similar strengths to foster talents and broaden awareness of LGBT identities and lessen any feelings of loneliness. Counselors can also encourage LGBT youth to seek out community experiences for their talent and to connect with community mentors. Gifted LGBT students are more likely to choose safe careers rather than pursue areas that better fit their interests and abilities. Now we are looking at the model of talent development. In 2011, Subtonic et al. Created a mega model of talent development that's helpful for showing how giftedness progresses throughout the development towards eminence and achievement. However, the concepts of gender and distance from privilege are lost in that model, which are major defining and delimiting factors in achievement. Therefore, Kerr and McKay in 2014 updated this model to include the newest research findings. This model includes talent, achievement, and distance from privilege as individual variables in context, filters, and opportunities as environmental variables in predicting both public and personal achievement. Distance from privilege is how the gifted person perceives fitting in the mainstream of the dominant culture's traditions, values, and practices. The context of a gifted person's life has a major impact on career choice and persistence. The model predicts that the potential of ability should include the capacity to overcome certain barriers created by a person's distance from the center of privilege and power. So there are two scales that measure the distance from privilege. The first is access to resources. This is social capital and economic resources. So an economic resource is not having money through funds from family or being able to get different scholarships. Social capital is not having the social connections that encourage and support persistence in college. Then there is distance from privileged status. This is the measure of the person's own perceptions of privileged status within society.
When looking at the model of talent development, there are some specific considerations that people should take when counseling these gifted students. First, for gifted students, academic and career development cannot be treated separately from gender identity, gender role, and gender relations. Counselors that are aware of the dangers of ignoring girls' early signs of giftedness, such as early reading, and kindergarten registering for boys, will be able to promote greater achievement and engagement in young gifted children if they know what problems can arise if they don't. Also, these counselors will be able to help parents deal with these rigid gender role socialization for both boys and girls. And talking to the parents about these problems can really open up more possibilities for children to develop their own unique identity because they know they have the acceptance of their parents. Also, counselors who engage in holistic life planning rather than the narrow career development can ensure that gifted boys and girls are prepared for a life of career and relationship satisfaction. Secondly, gender interacts with a wide range of variables to predict achievement and life satisfaction. For girls, this is the resistance to stereotype threat and early sexualization. And really focusing and looking at these things is critical to their development. For boys, this is the refusal to underachieve as a response of the boredom that they experience in class, and also being open to equitable gender relations. And looking at both of these things is critical to their well-being. Third, gifted students who diverge from the heterosexual or gender role norms, as well as intellectual norms, may face difficulties with peers that may require counselor intervention so that we can stop the bullying and promote their self-esteem early on. Fourth, giftedness also has implications for health. For girls, this can be seen when looking at their eating disorders or where unhealthy perfectionism can interact with fears of evaluation. So it's really just them always feeling that need that because they have this high standard, they have to be perfect. For boys, this is looking at how they have that pressure on them to be athletic. And this can lead to these health problems because they're just trying to prove themselves in sports, so they care more about their performance than their health. Looking at these things, counselors can build awareness of the health issues by teaching the warning signs of perfectionism, and stress-related health problems that come along with the stresses that are put on both boys and girls at that young gifted level. Lastly, we have understanding the complex interactions of gender, talent, achievement, distance from privilege, academic challenge, access to social capital, and economic resources, and how all of these things lead to this conclusion that there are just many, many pathways to success and life satisfaction. So it's not just one route that they can take. Counselors must be able to observe and carefully build the profile for success for each gifted students based on avoiding those danger zones and the achievement milestones